Okay, rocking and roll. We're going.
We're going.
Okay, so I'm Annie Warmke, and this is Carie Starr. And the reason I wanted to interview Carie is because she's one of the smartest women I've ever met,
Oh.
and she didn't know it when I met her. And I just feel like anything that I do in my life, I want to try to encourage her intelligence and her brilliance, because she's got a lot of things she's going to do in this world. So
Well, thank you.
that's why we're going to interview today. So anyway, so start out by spelling your name and where do you live currently and the name of your business.
Okay, so Carie Starr, Carie, one R, Starr, Starr, Cherokee Valley Bison Ranch in Thornville, Ohio.
All right.
I passed.
Yeah, you can spell. That's a helpful tool in life.
Yeah.
So, so what did you want to be when you were a little girl, and how has that translated into where you are today?
So when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be an artist. And so I knew there wasn't a job that included chopping weeds with a stick and, chasing around in the woods, because that was one of the things I liked to do when I was a little girl.
But what motivated you to think about being a teacher and an artist?
No, I'm not sure what made me want to be a teacher, other than maybe watching Little House on the Prairie or something like that. But we played school all the time whenever we would, like a bunch of us would get together and I would be the teacher. And maybe I was just like to torture children. I don't know.
That might be more of it than you think.
Anyway, and I like to create things. I like to draw pictures. And so anyway, so how that's translated to today is I get to be a teacher. I've taught workshops at our farm, and you and I have worked together, and we're planning to teach some workshops this year. And as far as the art part of it goes, I get to be creative when I'm like making posts for our farm or designing our literature for advertising and things like that. So, and then of course I do get to go muck around in the woods and be immersed in nature every day. So I think that those things have all kind of come to fruition.
So what's your dream job?
Well, I am living the dream.
Well, what is your job then, if that's the dream job?
Well, I get to be home every day, which I like. I get to hang out with cute little chickens every day, and I get to go see the national mammal every day. I get to experience all of the wonderful things that they do. I get to meet lots of cool people. I mean, we've met so many people from all over the world just by having our bison. They've sort of introduced me to some cool people. They helped me get out of my shyness and have something important to talk about. So, interacting with people is one of the favorite parts of my job. Most of the days, anyway.
So walk me through the day. You get up in the morning, you look at Pinterest.
Yes. Well, I'm looking for farm ideas. So.
Farm ideas, okay.
Yes. Yes, and I do my networking in the morning.
What's that mean, networking?
Well, I'll get on social media and make a post for the day about the farm. I drink lots of coffee, as you know. Just kind of wake up, and then I go down and tend to my little chickens, and I check the bison and make sure everybody's present and accounted for. Especially if we've had a windstorm or something like that, I'll scan the fence line and make sure there's nothing on the fence. And if they're in a faraway pasture, then a lot of times that means going for a pasture walk, which gets me out into nature, which is wonderful. And then I have lots of other projects that I'm working on. So I'll work on that. And then at the end of the day, I put on my domestic goddess hat and, whip up dinner and make sure all the laundry's done and that kind of fun stuff. And then, chill out for the evening.
So I know you said do lots of other stuff, but some of the things I know you're doing now is mentoring
Yes.
and doing some consulting and things like that. So tell me a little bit about that as far as part of a dream job.
Well, I'm getting to interact with other women and teach them and share with them and help to boost their confidence with what they're doing. I think that's important.
Okay, so what, but how does that work? Like you just like call up women and say, hey, how about if I help you out?
Yeah, pretty much. No.
That is not you.
No. So I don't know. I'm a good listener. So people just kind of are drawn to me and will start telling me their problems and things like that. So, but we're also working with WFAN, who has sort of organized an official mentoring program, but you and I did find those women. So yeah, so I have a woman that I'm working with, and we've kind of picked Tuesdays as our day to get together because she is off on those days. So
so what do you help her with?
Well, I'm helping her with some accounting, business management, like figuring out what she's supposed to be keeping records of, because so far she hasn't kept many records. And so, having 13 years of business record keeping under my belt, I'm able to kind of help her out with those and share my tax accountant information with her. I have a couple spreadsheets that I've made that are good for tracking those kind of things. So I'm sharing those with her. My experiences with going to farmers markets, marketing, that's something else she's interested in. So I'm pretty good at that. Yeah, so those are the things so far that we're working on. And
then you have another person you're working with. Are you doing something different in your mentoring with her?
Well, we haven't really got started yet because she's a teacher at a college, and so I think we're going to wait to get started until after her school year is over with, just so that she doesn't have another thing on her plate. But I think she's interested in similar things like bookkeeping and the business end of things. Like you and I were discussing the other day, so many people get into farming and they don't worry about the business part of it. They're worried about perfecting their craft, but you have to have both. Otherwise you're going to fail miserably.
Yeah. And you might even fail miserably, even if you have both.
Right, but at least you got a leg up.
That's right. You know how you fail.
Right, you're knowing how you fail.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
So that's cool. So you think being able to like help other women or share your experiences with other women is part of a dream job then?
Definitely. I'm kind of a shy person, so it really it helps to draw me out. I do things intentionally to get me out of my comfort zone so that I'm constantly building myself up. And yeah, that's it. That's that.
That's a good strategy.
Just say yes.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So what inspired you to seek a career in agriculture? I know you're talking about that a little bit, but.
Well, so I really had never had any great aspirations to be a farmer.
Did you have some aversion to that? You thought there's something wrong with it?
No, I just didn't. It just never occurred to me that that was a job that I would want to do. I was a lab technician for a long time, and then I was a safety coordinator. But I always had this like burning desire to be my own boss. I just never knew what it was. What did I want to do? When I was a little girl, I used to, my grandmother had peacocks, and so they shed their feathers in the summertime. So I would always collect all the feathers. And then I would get on the bus, and I had this real fancy form that I made on notebook paper, and I would collect orders for these peacock feathers and then sell them for $0.25 a piece. I was making big money when I was in elementary school. And then they finally made me stop doing it because I don't know why. I mean, you'd think they'd want to encourage that.
That's right.
So yeah, I had to quit taking orders for peacock feathers on the bus. But and then my mom would buy these big bags of bubble gum, and I would take a pocket full of bubble gum to school and sell it to the other kids at school.
You're an entrepreneur.
I was, I didn't think about that when I was a kid, like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, but looking back, it's like, wow, I always kind of had a knack for selling things. So I never thought I would be a salesperson, yet here I am.
Yeah.
So anyway, I never thought that being a farmer would be a job that I would be able to have. And so my goal was to have chickens and goats. Like
As a farmer.
as more of a hobby.
Oh, so you were dreaming about this. There was nothing going in that direction yet.
Right. So
no land. You
like
didn't
when I
have a
had
place.
land, I thought I'm gonna build a barn. I'm gonna have goats and chickens. So when I moved back to our land where I live now, that was my dream. But I went to dinner at Ted's Montana Grill and I had bison prime rib, and that was the best thing I'd ever eaten. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would like to be able to eat that all the time. And then you have the light bulb moment, the light bulb went off, and I was like, well, I live in the middle of 25 acres. I could raise bison. And so I never thought that it would happen because everything about bison is expensive
and big.
And I thought, well, it's a fun little fantasy. I'll be happy to have goats and chickens. And then I met Jared, and the whole thing kind of came together. And
oh, those men,
I know,
they cause trouble in your life all the time.
So anyway, he helped me make that dream come true. And so we started with bison first. We got to start small
with all the easy stuff.
Right. And then I got goats and chickens later. But
yeah. So how did you find the land that you're on?
Well, I am one of those extremely lucky people who had land in the family. And technically, I don't own any land. But my grandmother had the ultimate plan for her children to never leave her. So when she bought the farm, she had planned exactly how many acres she needed to buy to be able to divide that up among her kids equally so that they would never leave. And so, and she didn't want to wait until after she was gone to give the kids the land because she wanted to see them enjoying it. And so she always said, I don't care what you do with it. I just want you to have it. And so luckily I have my mom's 25 acres at my disposal. And then I also lease 25 acres from my aunt. So that's how I got my farm. It's good and it's bad. If I could have picked where I bought my land, I definitely wouldn't have picked having conventional farming on two sides of my farm, because that is a pain in the tuchus to have to deal with the spraying and the runoff and all of the things that come with that type of farming surrounding me. So it was a blessing and somewhat of a curse because I can't sell it and move somewhere more hospitable.
Yeah, or more organic.
Or more, yeah, right. So, but we make the most of what we have, and we have lots of buffer zones and places for critters and things like that kind of help to shield us from that other part of what's going on in our neighborhood. So anyway, yeah, lucky enough to have family land.
So when your mom dies, then does the land then come to you?
It'll come to my sister and I. Mm-hmm. So then I will officially own land with my sister.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. Yes. None of those questions are on here.
No.
Which is good.
Yes.
So how do you maintain a work and life balance? And maybe talk a little bit about this year of your life in particular, not so much about COVID, but you've had some real eye-opening challenges. And
yes,
talk a little bit about that. So
I've always been kind of farming is a lifestyle. It's not just a job. It's a lifestyle. You live at your job, and when the wind is blowing, you're up all night because you're worried about a tree falling on the fence, or and your livestock getting out, or the roof blowing off of the barn, or any other thing that you can imagine at 3 o'clock in the morning when the wind is howling. You think of all the bad things. The power's going to go off, and I'm going to lose all my meat. And
Yeah,
blah,
well,
blah,
how are you
blah.
gonna get the bison back in? Because you don't go here kitty kitty and they come in.
Right. So yeah. So the work-life balance, I'm a workaholic, I'll admit that. And I kind of just take stress on and pile it on. And so that kind of bit me in the butt last year, because all of that sort of piled up on me, and I ended up with breast cancer. And so I had to become more intentional about what I'm doing. I have to take time for self-care, which has never been my forte. So now I'm, every morning I take supplements that help me. I am working on stress reduction. I have this mat, it's called a spook mat, and it's got all these little fingers on it. It's like an acupressure mat. And you look at it and you think it's some sort of a torture device, because you're supposed to lay on it basically with no shirt on. And so, but that is super relaxing. You wouldn't think it would be. And it usually puts me to sleep by the end of the day, or by the end of the time that I'm laying on the mat. And so I usually do that at the end of the day. And then I have some breathing exercises that I do. And I have reduced stress as far as I just made up my mind I was going to be less stressed out about certain things. And so I have just sort of blocked that out, and not blocked it out, but just decided I'm not going to be involved in that. And that's worked out pretty well.
How did you figure out how to be intentional in this approach to trying to find health for yourself after cancer?
Well, I've read I don't know how many books on breast cancer, and they all talked about the same things, like 7 things in your life, about having balance, and about stress, and taking care of yourself, and eating the right foods, and but yeah, dealing with your crap, So I figured if multiple people were saying it, there must be something about it. So cancer can't live in a healthy body. And so what do I need to do to make my body healthy to where cancer doesn't want to set up camp anymore? So that's pretty much what that. And then I had a really great friend network who helped me send me words of affirmation. You sent me a box with the word of the day in it. And so every day I would pick out a powerful word from that box, and I would think about it and think about how that would apply to my day and go from there. But lots of women reached out to me and sent me encouraging words or poems, or just touched base with me.
We set up a network of
Yeah,
women
and
that committed to the day, each day, to
yeah,
get in touch.
yeah, that was during my recovery. And then, of course, you've kept up, and I had a couple other friends that committed to still reaching out to me that their day of the week. And I honestly feel like that helped a lot, because it was like I took the power from that into me, and it really helped my healing process. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think too, I remember, when I was making the cards, I called them Buffalo Gal cards. And I just kept trying to think about, if I was trying to heal myself, how would this word, work with that? And I know it was interesting, because I felt like I was a little girl, and I was putting my heart out in that box. And I know I drove you crazy. I called every day and said, "What's the word of the day?" Or I text you.
Drive me crazy.
I know, but I worried I was driving you crazy. But I just thought, we're on a roll here, and it's all going well. And if I just ask, how are you taking care of yourself? And but I think it's the power of, close relationships with people, because I remember calling you and saying, "Let me take care of you."
Yes.
And I was afraid you'd say no, or just not call back.
Whatever.
So what's your go-to for self-care? I mean, the really important things, you had a list, but
Yeah.
You're having a bad day, or you haven't had enough sleep, or you're mad at Jared.
Oh, I never get mad at Jared.
Okay, well, you're never, on the days you never get mad at Jared.
So like, I love music. So we always have music going. I subscribe to Sirius XM and Amazon. And so there's just a myriad of music that I can listen to. And so I choose the mood of the day with the station that I pick, and it's whether it's country music or island vibe music or something like that.
Oh,
And on Sunday is, we call it church, but every Sunday we drink Hawaiian coffee and we listen to Hawaiian music, and we have one certain song that we listen to every weekend. And so that kind of like sets off the morning. Once the coffee is ready, we listen to that song and drink the coffee and maybe look at some pictures from all of our trips to Hawaii and just kind of go there in our minds a little bit. So that's really good. But yeah, every day I'm listening to music, and I listen to podcasts that I like. That kind of helps reduce stress, helps me learn some stuff. Of course, there's still lots of stressful things in the day, but I try to reduce how that stress impacts me.
Right, what you tell yourself about it.
Right. You're never going to have a stress-free life, but how I handle that stress and how I react to that stress has changed. So, and, doing the things, the breathing exercises and taking the supplements and eating, like I've changed my diet as well. So, even though I might want to eat a sugar cookie because I love sugar cookies, or I might want to eat Peeps or something like that.
Peeps. Whoa.
Because I
can't even imagine Peeps.
Oh my gosh, I was a Peep addict, but I'm reformed now.
Good to know. I was worrying.
Yeah, so
Peeps.
The little bunnies. I love to eat the ears off a little bit.
Oh, I can't even imagine it.
So I've cut that stuff out of my diet, and hopefully that will make me healthier.
Yeah, well,
I feel like it has.
White sugar is really irritating to the entire system. It's like alcohol, really. Yeah.
Yes.
So are there any helpful tools that you've used to get started or make a living?
I would say my number one tool is networking. When we first started with the bison, like YouTube wasn't a thing. 13 years ago, believe it or not, there wasn't a bazillion videos that you could watch about building a fence or raising bison on YouTube. So I had to reach out to other people who were doing it and kind of get a feel for what they were doing, read good old fashioned books about bison. And 13 years ago, there wasn't nearly as much information out there as there is now.
So that's the reason that you bought the herd and you didn't have any fence, because there was no YouTube.
No, I just did that because I was impulsive. But
well, let's tell that story. It's such a good one. I love that story. That's the first story you ever told me. And I just thought, oh man, that is a woman after my own heart. Even though I would not do that, I would have been a nervous wreck.
So there's nothing easy about bison. So I didn't know that at the time, really.
Thank goodness.
But yeah, I might not have done it. So anyway, yeah, we had planned to start small and just get a few calves. And then one Sunday in February of 2008, Jared was perusing the Columbus Dispatch, because people still read the newspaper back then and people still put in classified ads and things like that. So Jared found an ad for a herd of bison for sale in Mount Vernon, which is just an hour north of us. So we thought, well, we should go and talk to him. We should go pick his brain. And I had never even met a bison. And here I was fantasizing about raising bison. Yeah, so we went to just look at the herd of bison. And we got up there and he had the most gorgeous bull. He looked like the buffalo bull on the back of the nickel, like just picture perfect.
Got a nice hump, got a nice hiney,
got a beautiful mane, and oh my gosh, he was just gorgeous. And so we asked questions, the kind of questions that greenhorns ask, and so he told us all about it. And then he said, yeah, well, if no one buys them, they're all going to go to the processor. And so it was like, oh no, they can't, not Charlie. Charlie can't go to the processor. So on the way home, we knew what we had to do. We knew we had to buy those bison. And so we went back up the next day and agreed to buy the herd of bison, which wouldn't have been a problem, except we had no truck, we had no barn, we had no fence. So yeah, that was a great way to get started. Luckily, the guy agreed to keep them at his place, so we didn't have to time the concrete blocks in the backyard and hope they stayed or anything. But that started a chain reaction of things. So we went and bought a truck the next week, since we were going to have to haul things for these bison, hay and feed and whatnot. So, and then we went and talked to a fence dealer, and he kind of gave us all the pointers on what we needed to know about building a fence to hold in these massive beasts. So he gave us kind of the scoop on how to build this fence, because I had never built fence before in my life, and why I thought that it was a good idea to, just buy a herd of bison and build the fence. I don't know, but
Naivete, as they say.
yeah, and that was probably a good thing, because it was a big
Well,
thing to
yeah,
undertake.
if you'd known what was involved, you might not have ever done it.
Right. And so we went and we bought all these materials, and we brought them back to the house, and we rented a pounder so that we could drive these posts in, because that's what
Yeah, no kidding.
they told us, was that having the posts driven in rather than digging the post holes and filling them in.
Softer otherwise.
Right, and trying to hold in bison, we wanted it to be as strong as possible. So we had all these parts, and we're like trying to figure it, putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Really, how are we going to put all these parts together? So since there was no YouTube, we would jump in the car or the truck and drive down the road and look at the neighbor's fence and be like, well, how the heck did they do that? And so we got it figured out, and it's not too bad, because here we are 13 years later, and that fence is still holding up. So we've done nothing but build fence and things since then. But yeah, so networking was a good tool to have then, and field trips, and just a good old brain between the ears was a good good tool. Logic, intelligence.
So then here's the end of the story that I love, and that is, they're coming, the bison are coming on the trailer, somebody's hauling them, and you're not really ready.
Yes.
And you can hear the trailer.
Yes.
The truck coming up the road.
Yeah. So we live in on a dirt road. Well, I mean, it's paved, but it's got a lot of gravel on it. So, and it's kind of potholy in places. And so we're scurrying about, knowing that the bison are coming, because we didn't have a truck, we had a truck, but we didn't have a livestock trailer. So we were paying someone to haul these bison from Mount Vernon down to our farm. And we're scurrying around, and we're like, oh my gosh, the fence isn't working right, or do we have electricity right on the fence? Is it gonna hold? And then I hear this ching, ching, ching of the trailer coming across the top of the hill, because we live down a valley, Cherokee Valley.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we saw it coming across the hill, and it just like all this adrenaline rush, like, oh my gosh, our dream is coming true. And so 6 weeks after we had bought a herd of bison, they were there at our farm, not a whole herd, but a couple at a time. And there was just nothing like seeing those bison run through the pasture for the first time. Like, wow. And yeah, and within 6 weeks, they were all at our farm, one trailer load at a time. But boy, that first trailer load was just amazing.
Yeah.
So
the other question has to do with making a living. So then I know you did other things like have pigs, I know you enjoyed having goats and how you got to chase them every day.
Yes, that was
bison
so
fencing
enjoyable.
is not goat fencing and things like that. But so how did you end up figuring out, or how have you made a living?
Well, we kind of bought a ready-made business, essentially. We bought cows that were getting ready to have babies, and we bought animals that were ready to go to the harvest. And so we kind of jumped in with both feet and learned how to do marketing. Both of us still had a full-time job at the time. So we had these snack sticks, and I would go to work and I would like give those out to people.
Just
And I was
like in school with the bubble gum.
Exactly. I was like a drug dealer though. It was like, here you go, you can try it. The first hit's free, you know?
I can just see you saying that.
Well, you know, I probably did because
Yeah.
so
Only
anyway,
one hit for you.
that's right. So I would give those away, and then of course people then started buying it, and then we started going to farmers markets after that, and we really got a good like a client list built up. And then just a couple of years into raising bison, we decided we would build a store at our farm. It's like a shed with freezers in it, but it keeps people from coming in my house, and it's a good place to transact business. Yes, because busy doing everything else. Cleaning the house is definitely not top of my priority list.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was how I got started marketing the bison, and then I kind of figured it out from there. That was before Facebook or any of that stuff. And we've done basically what it took, because we started out with kind of a small herd. And so to keep on making money, like you said, you have to have many baskets. So
yeah,
we just found ways to fill baskets. And one time, this is a funny story, because we were going to have this really great farm agritourism kind of thing. But we've always been ahead of our time. So we were going to have an on-farm, like we were going to do a straw bale maze and a corn box and a petting zoo and a pony to ride and all of this kind of stuff. And we built a gate across the front of our barnyard, and so that way we could hold back the crowds that were going to show up for this great venture. And so Kevin Costner was wrong. If you build it, they will not necessarily come.
No, you have to build the right thing or be a movie.
Yeah. So we built it and they did not come. And so that idea quickly, the corn molded in the box and the hay and the straw got all rained on, and it was a flop. So, but you have to be adventurous and try new things, right?
Mhm.
Just keep throwing ideas at the wall until something sticks. And so one year I did, I called it the Harvest Day, and it was in the autumn, and we had raised a bunch of food in our garden just for ourselves, and my sister and her husband helped. And so we had flowers, and we made different kinds of jams and jellies, and it was amazing how many people came out for that. And we didn't charge anything for it. It was just come out and enjoy the day. And my cousin Charlene did face painting and things like that. And we just had like different information stations around the farm where people could go and look and learn about pigs and turkeys and chickens. And we had rabbits, and we had a pony, and we had goats and all that kind of stuff. So it was really engaging for the kids. Kids are never very impressed by bison.
They're too big, and they're
well,
too
they don't get what they are. They don't
Yeah.
get their significance. You know, they're like, yeah, it's a big brown cow, big deal, you know, whereas adults are usually more intrigued by the bison. So anyway, I sold an entire bison in that one day. Just people coming out to the farm. I gave out samples of the different meats that we were raising. And so yeah, just, you know, always looking for the next creative idea to get people out there. And yeah, not being afraid to try things. That's a good tool.
Yeah, well, it's good to have options, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where do you want to be in 5 years with your work and your personal life?
Well, I don't necessarily have a 5-year plan, but I do have goals that I want to accomplish. So I would like to have 50 bison within the next 5 years. I would like to share our farm through events and through some on-farm camping, through some agritourism. You know, we were starting to do that stuff last year, and then I had the cancer and the COVID, 2 C's, kind of wrecked 2020. And so I haven't really figured out what this year's going to look like as far as those goals go. But and then I would like to do more educational things, and that's in the works with what you and I are doing this year. I would like to teach more bison workshops.
Like how to raise bison?
Yeah, so there's so many different ways to raise bison, and kind of everybody has to figure out what works for them. But a lot of times when people are getting into bison ranching, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
So I call it my bison primer. So it tells people, here's things to consider before you start buying bison. Make sure you have a way, before you bring one bison onto your farm, make sure you have a way to get that bison off of your farm eventually, because they're big, expensive, hairy beasts. And you're not going to be very happy when you figure out, oh my gosh, I have no way to get this bison to a processor or to sell to somebody or anything like that. So those are the kind of things that I try to hammer home to people that are wanting to get into bison. And I do a lot of that now. Like, people call me and ask me questions about bison. And so I would like to have a set schedule where I'm doing regular workshops at the farm, or even virtually.
Or a list of frequently asked questions.
True. That's a good idea, really.
Yeah, on your website.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then I want to keep working with you. That's one of my goals, is to keep working with you for the next 5 years at least. Probably
After
longer.
that, I might be too old to work with me, but
You might be tired of me by then.
oh, I don't think so. I'm sure not.
And-
We've been working together a long time, what, 6 or 7 years, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, a while.
Yeah,
So-
it's just, we have a lot of fun together, and we're smart together. We make each
Yeah.
other smarter.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so what about your personal life?
I still want to be healthy. And want to be able to have time to, I'd like to have some of the major projects wrapped up so that I'm not working every minute of every day and every weekend, and planning our summers based on what projects we're working on. There's always going to be maintenance, but I'd like to be done with the farm projects, the major farm projects, in the next 5 years.
Like the infrastructure to have it in
Right,
place.
right.
Mhm.
Like, there's always something, obviously, and I always hatch up a new idea every year, it seems like. So, but I hope to have more time to do just fun things.
What kind of fun things?
Well, like I have this cute little convertible car.
Yeah.
And so we usually end up working all summer. And so there's no time to enjoy rides on the weekends in that fun little car. And so I want to have time to go for rides in the car at the very least, and travel. I love to travel. And so there's a lot of places I want to see. Hawaii again, for sure. I mean, I've only been there 4 times, so
Only 4 times.
and Costa Rica and some other places. So I want to be able to do that.
So what challenges have you faced in your particular part of the agriculture industry, and how did you deal with those or overcome those challenges?
So I think if you look in the dictionary under challenge, there's a picture of bison. So there's nothing that's not challenging about bison. Bison are very hands-off. So when we are getting one into, like, trying to do something with one of them, we have to think like a bison. And they say you can get a buffalo to do anything it wants to. So
Make
we
it
have
their idea.
We have to figure out how to make it want to do what we want it to do.
Also, aren't they pretty stressed out when they're like forced into tight quarters and things?
So bison have a really strong herd instinct. They want to be together. And when you get one bison separated from the herd, it is in a panic mode. It is no longer thinking about food or anything like that.
It's afraid.
Right. So we do very low stress handling. So we have a corral where everyone goes to drink. Like, we have the water there and we have the minerals there. So they're used to coming up into the corral. So it's not stressful for them when they're in there. And so on the day that we're going to do something with them, whether we're going to run them through our squeeze chute or we're going to load one into the trailer, we use a treat called chaff hay, and it's like buffalo crack. So we crinkle the bag. And if they're in our farthest away pasture, they'll come running for that buffalo crack. So we get them all up into the pasture and close the gates, and then, or into that corral and close the gates, and then start working, whether we're gonna work them all, we'll get them up in groups because they're happier together.
Mhm.
Or if we're gonna load one, then we start letting out the ones that we don't want until we get the one we do want in there. But we don't go in with the bison, we don't go into the pasture with them, because when they're stressed out, they can jump 6 foot from a standstill. If they can get their head over it, they can jump it. So our corrals or our handling system area is like 7 foot tall plus in areas, because they can climb, and then if they get their feet up, then they kind of can jump.
Pull themselves up.
And yeah. And when they get stressed out, they do crazy stuff, like they start jumping over gates.
And they could die too.
Right.
Ruminants are really crazy.
Right. That, like, capture myopathy is a thing for bison because they're still kind of wild. And so everything that we do, we keep that in mind. So a stressed out bison can do a lot of damage to equipment. It can do damage to people. It can tear through your fence. They can jump over a center gate in a trailer and hang themselves. All kinds of crazy things. So,
or injure themselves to the point where you can't help them. They could bleed to death or whatever.
right, right. So we're very intentional about being low stress. And, it works out for the most part. I mean, there are animals who teach us things that we need to change or to tweak a little bit. And so,
So they're good at showing you that.
they're very good teachers.
Yes, I know this from working with a variety of animals, but I don't like to work with animals. Like I didn't really like working with llamas.
Yeah.
Because they're very intelligent, which I like that about goats. They're intelligent, but they aren't very domesticated. So you call their name and they're like, go to hell.
Yeah.
Whereas goats answer you. Well, my goats answer because they know I want them to come. They might be like, when I'm ready.
Right.
But I did hear you, and I will
Mhm.
show up because you are important to me.
Yeah.
So it would be hard to work with bison under those circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, they don't come to their name, but I do know how to speak their language. It's the
Different
crinkle of the
sounds
bag,
and-
or
yeah.
if I want them to go to the next pasture, I jingle the chain and that gets their attention, and I go, woo, and
Yeah.
I call them and that gets their attention. And so then they figure out that it's time to go to a new pasture, and they love that. So
Yeah.
that's what everyone thinks. How do you get them to go to the next pasture? And it's like, oh, that's the easiest part of the job, because they want to. They're very nosy and very curious, and they like to roam.
I would say make it their idea.
Yep.
So what assistance do you, I'm on the wrong question. What challenges have you faced in your particular part of the industry?
We just talked about that one.
I know, but I mean in the industry itself, not just as being the bison farmer rancher, but in the bigger picture of, is this a world for women? Is this an industry that embraces, your style of management? That's the kind of thing.
I'm definitely the weirdo in our, there's a lot of people that are doing the grass fed, but
so you're weird because you're doing grass fed?
well, yeah, because there's a lot of people that do bison and feedlot them, or they do feed grain, and our customers want grass fed. That's my customer, is somebody who wants to buy a high quality, good fats meat product. So a healthy protein, and bison fit that description when they're grass fed. They have lots of good omega-3s and that kind of thing.
There's no other challenges. Being a woman is a good type of farming to do.
Well, I suppose it could be a little bit intimidating for women to get into. There's more and more women getting into the bison industry. I have never let that stop me.
I see that.
I haven't asked for permission.
Okay.
So, that's
just apologized.
That's right. That's right. You know, I'm lucky because my grandmother was a badass woman and she did whatever the hell she wanted to do. She didn't wait for anyone to give her permission. And so I sort of came up with that, you know, or have that attitude myself. You know, I've worked in very non-traditional women's jobs my whole life. And so I guess me personally, it hasn't impacted as much. You know, I get comments from men, you know, can I back your trailer up for you? Or can I operate that ratchet strap for you?
Honey.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But I just roll with it, you know, I don't let them get to me. So, yeah.
All right. So what assistance do you know for that's out there for women that are in agriculture?
Well, there really isn't a lot specifically for women. WFAN seems to be a great national thing for women. And, you know, there's groups that sort of cater to your big farming women, like your crop farmers. But for small scale sustainable farming women, there isn't a lot out there. I've had to find groups on Facebook to be a part of, like for specifically for women. There's one called Women in Sustainable Agriculture on Facebook. And it's a good place to go to commiserate and bounce ideas off other women. There's one called Amazons of Agriculture that
Oh, that's a good Amazons for agriculture. Wow.
So, you know, there's a few groups like that where you can go and kind of chit chat. And you and I are working to build a group for women farmers, Buffalo Gals Voices, and we're teaching women how to grab life by the horns so they can be badass women farmers as well, and be able to just let it slide off their shoulders when someone says something to them instead of, you know, letting it impact their day.
Yeah, or wear a button. I'm the farmer.
That's right. I'm the farmer. Yeah. And what was the rest of the question?
I think you got it.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
So what role do you see women playing in agriculture now and then in the future?
I think that there are way more women farmers than women farmers think there are.
Yeah, or men think there are.
Or men think there are. Mm-hmm. Women are doing a lot of times smaller farms because we are more in touch with the earth and we want to do things the right way. We want to heal the earth and we want to nurture the earth and we want to nurture these animals and vegetables and things like that and our families. And we're thinking about that end user when we're growing things. Like I'm growing food that's fit to eat for my family. I'm not going to grow anything else and I'm not going to let my standards slide on that. So I think that there's a lot of women out there who are farming. I mean, I know lots and lots of women farmers. And so we just aren't getting the recognition. But I think that women farmers are going to just keep, the number of women farmers is going to keep growing because it's a career that's very good for us. It's very suited to being a woman. And really, it's an indigenous trade, if you will. I'm Native American and the women were the farmers in the Native American community. You know, they were the ones planting the gardens and growing the food and things like that. Whereas the men were out, you know, fighting or
gallivanting
or hunting and things like that. But the women were the ones nurturing the earth and growing the food and things like that. And so, and I think so many people are farmers that don't realize they're farmers, you know, whether you're growing a big garden in your backyard to feed your family. I mean, that's farming. My grandma always made farming sound like a dirty word because, as I mentioned, we're surrounded by conventional farming on two sides. And my grandma used to curse farmers. And
well, she was a horse breeder. So
right. So she wasn't really a farmer.
A little above that.
Right. So she, you know, she grew hay and tended to hay and that kind of stuff. And we always had some kind of critter or another on grandma's farm. There was goats and chickens and peacocks and horses and cows and, everything you could think of. Grandpa was a wheeler dealer. And so he'd go to the auction and he'd always come home with something crazy for us kids to play with. But grandma cursed farmers. And so it's like, ooh, farmer's a dirty word, but she was more meaning the big crop farmers. But I don't think we'll see a lot of women in that industry, but I think that we'll see women in the small scale sustainable agriculture end of things.
So how do you think women are going to influence agriculture in the future?
I think that women are going to hopefully change the way it's done,
That would be a lot of our hopes, wouldn't it?
It would be.
So you think that women learn from hearing other women's stories? I think
do.
that's valuable. It's like in our sort of our DNA almost of how we learned in the past.
Right. Yeah. And I think it definitely tweaks something in our genes to hear those stories from other women, and and it's encouraging too, to be like, well, shit, if she can do it, I can do it,
That's right.
Wow, look at that woman doing that crazy, amazing thing. I can do it. It gives you hope, I think, when you see other women doing it. And I just got done reading a book called The Confidence Code, and it talked about how women were so much more comfortable in groups of other women. There was so much more interaction and so many more ideas shared than if there were men in the room. And so I think that that's a powerful thing for women to come together and share their stories and share their how-tos and
the secret code.
The secret code.
That's right. The hacks. So even though we have computers, we still need to hear women's stories.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what can the government and industry and academic institutions do to inspire the next generation of farm women?
Well, I think that the government needs to start incentivizing, that's easy for me to say, doing the right thing. And by the right thing, I mean not tilling. I think that they should offer incentives to people to have more trees, to do silvopasture, to have buffer zones and areas for wildlife, instead of all these subsidies that go to crop farmers, that incentivize them to cut down all of the tree lines, and so that they have room to get a bigger bean head turned around or whatever, to destroy things that are creating oxygen and sequestering carbon. I mean, that's essentially what the government is paying for right now, is to destroy the planet. So I think that we need to have a turn to where they quit incentivizing that kind of farming and start incentivizing my kind of farming. And I think that schools should quit teaching, every year the Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492 or whatever, and start teaching, here's a packet of seeds, and here's how you put it in the ground, and here's how you grow food for yourself, so that you're not at the mercy. Like when we have an event like last year of COVID, where people are scrambling because there's food shortages because it can't be shipped to them, or somebody's buying it all and hoarding it. So I think that will teach a little bit of resiliency to these kids. I was lucky. I didn't think I was lucky when I was a kid that my mom was making me work in the garden. But now I see that I was lucky to have that influence, to know how to grow food for myself. And I can be self-reliant. So I think that that's what schools should be doing, is instilling a love for growing food in children.
We all have this in our DNA, we all come from some kind of farmers and some kind of keepers of the land, and it's a shame that we don't honor that more. So what's your favorite frugal marketing tip?
Well, I am cheap. So.
And you're not a chick.
That's right. Although I do like to hang out with little chicks, but no. So my favorite frugal marketing is, there's multiple ways to reach out to potential customers. And so things I've done, I spoke at a Rotary meeting one time. I went in and I thought it was a flop because I had forgot to convert my file from a Mac file to a Windows file. And so I wasn't able to use my PowerPoint, which was sort of my crutch. But somehow I winged it and talked to this room full of people about our farm and our bison, because they have a meeting every month and they get tired of hearing the same old thing over and over again. So reaching out to different clubs and organizations is free to you, and then it gets attention for your business.
Yeah, local people.
Yeah.
So what's your most effective social media tip?
Well, I like to use humor. So
Puns, you like
humor, puns, and sometimes I'm a little bit naughty.
Oh no, you're kidding.
Yeah, it's true. Our website for a long time was Wild, Woolly, and Horny.
Yes, the first time I heard that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, but bison have horns.
Yes,
and
they
so
do, but I
very
didn't make
woolly.
that connection.
Right.
I just thought you were really being ornery.
Well, I was, but it was funny. And it's true. They're wild, woolly, and horny, and sometimes they're hornier than others.
That's right.
Come July or August, they're really horny. But anyway, so that gets people to laugh. But anyway, so I used to sell Thanksgiving turkeys. And so for the month before Thanksgiving, I would start sharing like a turkey joke or a turkey cartoon or something like that every day. And so Facebook works really good on engagements. So I would ask, what's your favorite recipe or that kind of thing? What's your go-to Thanksgiving dinner item that you can't live without? And just every post, try to get engagement on it and humor. And then, of course, people love to see pictures of babies. So baby bison always get me a lot of likes and views and engagements. And they love to see pictures of my bull tearing up hay bales. So I will put hay out, and then I will wait for the moment that the bull is running around the pasture and pushing the hay bale around the pasture. And that always gets me tons of likes and follows and that kind of thing.
So just capturing the moment.
Right.
So what do you think success looks like?
I think having enough is what success looks like. Having enough money to pay my bills, having enough time to enjoy my life, to take care of what I need to take care of, but also to travel and that kind of thing. Being healthy enough to be able to do my work every day. There was a time last summer when I was pretty much sitting on my hands and I couldn't do anything. And boy, that was horrible. I hate that feeling. I think having enough knowledge to be able to take care of my animals and them not, to die out in the pasture because I don't know anything. So having enough animals to meet the needs of my customers, just having enough. I'm not greedy. I don't want too much, but enough is good for me. I feel like that's a successful thing.
So what's the best advice that you ever received?
Man, I've gotten a lot of advice over the years, but my grandma always said, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so I try to remember that. And when I'm needing oil, I try to remember to squeak and get the attention that I need. Because, people don't necessarily know you need something unless you're letting them know. So be a squeaky wheel.
That's true.
Yeah.
So anything else you wanted to share or that we didn't cover?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Okay, well, so that's as they say, the end of our service.